Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we can start finally showing off Shadows of Change. So there's going to be loads of videos today, keep that in mind. So if I sound a little tired in one of them, it's because I've probably been voicing non-stop for a good 12 hours or so. It's been a lot of prep work, but with that being said, I can showcase a new faction, with the Changeling being the first one. So this is a new Tzeentchian faction, and perhaps one of the most unique ever added into the Total War Warhammer series. It's actually fairly cool. And before anything, there's going to be hourly videos coming out today, 4 in total, but if you also want a little bit more, I'll also be streaming on twitch.tv/thegreatbookofgrudges. So yeah, if you want to pop by, we'll be streaming every single day. Now, let's jump into all the stuff with the Changeling. First up, we're going to talk about the faction lord effects. Faction effects are as follows. Immune to diplomatic penalties from trespassing. Establish trickster cults instead of occupying territory. Can replenish and recruit in foreign territory. And finally, armies are hidden in region with trickster cult buildings, meaning that it's not just the Changeling. You could literally have a Chaos Lord with a Doom stack there, and he'll be perfectly fine, just hidden away. Now, when it comes to the Lord effects, we have the following. Can shapeshift in battle into other legendary lords and legendary heroes. This might not seem like a lot, but believe me, it is actually a very, very big mechanic. So we'll briefly talk about the starting locations. Obviously, when you're in Immortal Empires, you'll be starting smack in the middle of Stirland, meaning that you're just contributing to all the problems that the Empire has, and you will be doing the same in the Realm of Chaos map, and you have a fairly decent army to start off with too. So you'll be able to start causing a lot of chaos, which is kind of expected from the very beginning of your campaign. The fun thing is, because the Changeling is such a different type of faction, you could really have a lot of fun here in terms of roleplay. Now, when it comes to the Realm of Chaos map, which I would suggest doing at least once, because of the story, you start off in Nordland. It's a smaller thing, but still in the Empire. You're just going to be causing problems in the Empire non-stop, which I think is kind of funny, but yeah, let's move on. So while the Changeling himself does focus around, changing forms and so on, you do actually have quite a few things to play around with if you choose to stay in your normal form. You should mix and match though. So you're able to get a unique skill line, which is going to allow you to make the cultists a bit cheaper in terms of recruitment, just extra ranking too, which is also quite good. You're going to get a lot of bonuses to upkeep production, especially if you're going to be quite aggressive. And this is going to be the faction which is going to be quite aggressive. Believe it or not, you're going to be getting into a lot of combat as a faction that's not going to be seen a lot. I know that sounds weird, but once you start playing or you start seeing people play, you'll see what I mean. You're also going to get some decent bonuses towards your allied units if you get anything from allied recruitment, because it is kind of beneficial for you, at least with the Changeling himself. Overall, it's a pretty interesting, unique skill line here, which I wasn't really expecting. Naturally, he does have access to the usual magic and stuff, because he is a horror after all. He is a Tzeentchian demon. You will have access to the Law of Tzeentch, but you can also have access to different types of magic too. The main thing first is we have to talk about that he has one unique item, which is the Trickster Staff, that you'll get at rank 12, and it'll be a quest battle for it. It's not too difficult from what I've seen. It's pretty good bonuses for extra winds of magic, which, again, very beneficial to you as a Tzeentchian. Now, what makes him incredibly unique is the fact that the Changeling can change forms. This means every race, every lord, legendary lord, and legendary hero that's been added into the game so far, that's all a form that you can take. And it's kind of cool. Now, I really do hope this is just thinking about the future when extra characters are added in, that Creative Assembly don't forget to add those into this area. And because it's happened before with other things, so I'm just pointing it out there. But it's great, because if you're looking for specific characters, you can filter it by race, you can filter it by their ability for melee attack, melee defense, or whatever you want. Anything that actually is of interest to you. Now, you're going to have to find these characters. You're going to have to either defeat them or do a specific scheme as a quest to be able to unlock them. But it doesn't really take too long. It's basically playing Pokemon, which... yeah, I mean, it is literally playing Pokemon. This mechanic is also available to you in custom battles, so you can actually bring in the Changeling and surprise your opponent by being Skarbrand or turning into Balthazar Gelt. Now, when it comes to campaign, early on, if, say, for example, you turn into Katarine, you won't have access to all the spells. You'll need to naturally level up your character to be able to get those spells. But in custom battles, yeah, you'll have them all from the very beginning. What you won't have is mount options and stuff, which is a bit of a shame, but then again, it makes sense. Obviously, the Changeling can turn into one person, not two. Though, that being said, I've not actually checked out how it works for the Sisters of Twilight. Campaign-wise, as you progress, you'll start unlocking more and more characters, and you'll be able to get some really powerful ones and get their bonuses. So, for example, in certain cases, I've been able to turn them to Skarbrand, or Kugaf, or anyone really, so you get the benefits that they have as legendary lords. It is as strong as it sounds, and it adds to a lot of flavor. Obviously, this is something that we've heard of in lore, so it is a perfect addition here in terms of turning lore into gameplay. So the tech tree for the Changeling is going to be a little bit different to what you're normally used to. Obviously, it's very stylized for the Changeling's own faction, but still very much the same. You know, you've got sections which is for Winds of Magic, Changing the Ways, Trickster Cults, Trickster Rifts. Yes, you can get yourself some rifts in different locations around all the different points of the map. So it's something that will link up to the theaters that we'll talk a little bit later about. But in general, it's not bad. I think it's quite well stylized here. When it comes to the rifts, that means that you'll be able to launch invasions into different locations, but you'll also be able to summon cultists in those areas too. This is part of the theater stuff that we'll be talking about, and what's going to happen there is you're going to be able to start preparing for an invasion. You're going to be able to even spawn armies in those locations and build them up. It's kind of interesting because this means that you're going to be able to be as active as possible. And if you're one of those types of players who knows how to multitask very well, you could literally be causing problems in every single continent at the same time. Obviously, if you're not too well versed with that type of stuff, it's probably not the best thing to do, but a lot of you guys are watching this video, you know, you're veterans, you've been playing for a while, you've been playing since maybe Warhammer 1, you're used to this, it won't be too much of an issue. For those who are slightly newer, don't worry, it's not actually that bad. Start off with attacking in the area that you're already used to, and then start branching out. Bit by bit, you'll be fine. But I will say that the Changeling does stand as possibly one of the more complex factions. More complex than even Daniel, but then again, Daniel wasn't really complex. Daniel was just drop-dead boring after a while, which is a shame because his concept was actually quite good. I know what's going to happen here. Some of you guys are going to mention, oh, it's free resources I need to manage now, but don't you worry. The two new resources for the Trickster Cultists and Rifts are not really something that you're going to be noticing a lack of, and you're not really going to feel like there's a need to go get them right away. They're linked up to schemes, take your time with them, don't really focus on them too much and just have fun. That's the way I've been doing it, and I feel like it's been working a lot better for me, and I feel like it's going to work well for you guys too. So we're going to talk about the main campaign thing, which is the schemes themselves, right? This takes you to the different theaters, as you can see, which is actually really, really cool. And we're only going to look at the Immortal Empires ones, mostly because it takes a while to go through all of them. Plus, really the only difference between the Immortal Empires one and the Realm of Chaos one is that the Immortal Empires one has more theaters. But this is linked up to your final battle in your campaign. There's loads of different battles in there, so you get a little bit of extra quests and so on. Every area needs to be unlocked in a sense, right? So say in the Badlands, you'll need to do a few schemes before you're able to actually do the battle in said area. The schemes themselves can vary from anything to fighting 12 different Tomb King factions to, I don't know, killing off another faction. It's pretty basic, nothing too out there. If anything, I would call this a very intricate questing system, which, yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound like a bad thing. It adds in a lot more things to do, especially as a faction that's not going to be empire building, because remember, the Changeling does not own territories. Now, through these schemes, you'll be able to pick up bonuses faction-wide. You'll be able to pick up immensely powerful items, some stuff which was only available to certain factions, possibly because of the Realm of Chaos mechanic, like going into the Chaos Realms, or going into using a caravan for the Chaos Dwarfs or Cafe. So yeah, you're going to get a lot of powerful stuff. There's even references to other stuff, possible future content in the future. There's a mention of like Egram Van Horseman's cape and so on. So yeah, this questing system really gives you a sense of direction. You still have the sandbox stuff. You can completely ignore this if you wish to ignore it. I kind of like this. It's very, very different. It's very, very cool. It's nice to see theaters return in some way, shape, or form. We used to have that in Total War back in the day. But it's very obvious, I will point that out, that the grand majority of the stuff that we've seen so far, Tzeentch got like the most development. which, to be fair, was probably not a bad thing. Yornbow's video will come out in an hour after this one, but let's be honest, Kairos was kind of lackluster. He's hopefully doing better. I haven't been able to play him just yet, so I will in another video, obviously, by that point. So yeah, Tzeentch definitely needed the most attention from what I can see here. We'll have to wait. Obviously, we've not been able to see Mother Ostenkia just yet by the time of recording this video, so maybe she's even more so. But yeah, we can tell. Comparing Changeling to Yornbow, Changeling is miles ahead. It's not a bad thing, however, because you'll see in my video, I'm actually very complimentary to Yornbow's faction. But yeah, you know, there's a lot of stuff here. So many different bonuses, so many different things. Again, wouldn't be opposed to see this come back in a different way, shape, or form for another character. Maybe, I don't know, Wulfric the Wanderer doing a quest system, because it kind of fits, right? It kind of fits. Obviously not a direct copy, but you know what I mean. It's just to add in a little bit of flavor, especially since we know Creative Assembly aren't closed off to the idea about reusing mechanics and just redoing them to fit a different theme. We've seen that obviously with the Chaos Dwarfs, and it's not a bad thing as long as it's done in a unique sense. Anyways, there is a bit more to go through here, as you can see. So what I'll do is I'll let it play out. You can see all the different bonuses that are coming in, and I'll see you guys back in about just a minute so we can continue talking about the campaign. Alright, we're back. So Changing the Ways has slightly been changed. It's not too different. It's just basically streamlined a little bit on how it looks. And obviously a few things have changed that's been outlined. Basically, the ones that were never getting used were removed and some new ones were added in. But it's basically the same format that you remember. Don't you worry about it. Nothing's really too different here. You'll still be able to use it or forget about it, because that's what I do. So cult supplies are a new currency that you'll be using with the Changeling, and this is going to be focused on buildings, on schemes, and technology. That's how you mainly get it, and you use it on buildings. So the idea is to work on your under-empire, in a sense. You'll need to be using this as a main form of currency alongside your treasury. It's not a bad thing, don't you worry. It's something that you'll kind of get used to from the very beginning, especially as you start to notice your actual cults. So you only have really one cult building, but basically everything is like a major settlement, which is kind of hilarious. And it's divided into 4 sections: basic military, advanced military, this is all your recruitment stuff, as you can imagine, or you can see on screen; symbiotic, which is going to give you bonuses, but will also give the people that you're taking from some bonuses too, kind of elevating a faction to make them a little bit stronger in a sense, but to make sure that their areas don't get destroyed, because there's factions which will raise it, which will mean that you will lose your own cults. And then there's parasitic, and the parasitic ones are more focused on, well, the usual stuff. You'll be draining more than providing. You'll be causing more problems, whereas with symbiotic you can stay relatively hidden. Keep in mind that discoverability is here, so it's basically like using a Skaven Undercity. If you're used to that, you're going to be used to this. If you have too many buildings that have too much discoverability, your enemy faction, or the factions that you're just leeching from, will find out and will remove the cult, losing you some income in multiple ways, and obviously not being able to recruit certain troops. Now, when you attack settlements with your armies, you will get the option of symbiotic and parasitic trickster cults. There's literally no difference in terms to the actual possible buildings here. It's more of the case of you'll start off with a symbiotic building or a parasitic building. It's a pretty good system because that means, and it saves a big fear for me. I thought we were going to end up with, 5 different types of cult buildings and so on, and that was just going to cause a problem. But this is much easier to handle. From what I've been able to play, it's actually quite a good thing to do so. Now, there's also Trickster Cultists, and that system is the same. The only difference is you have the military one too, which will spawn military buildings. Honestly, I didn't think there would be too much to talk about the cults, but there is a lot to actually discuss. Like, symbiotic and parasitic also kind of work in a similar sense to the yin and yang for cafe. So you will notice when I'm scrolling through, it says prevents the construction of blah blah blah. So yeah, there's some restrictions, but it's basically just basic balancing purposes. By a certain point, you're going to have so many cults around the area that it's not really going to matter. You won't really notice the restrictions, and yeah, you're going to have a lot of money coming in. Honestly, it's a pretty good system. I like what's being done to make these cults a little bit more interesting. They're a lot more interesting than the monogod cults, that's for sure, for the standard base game factions. Which I'm kind of hoping in the future we'll see a little bit of a facelift for those cults, just to give them a little bit more functionality and a little bit more fun to them, because right now they're just kind of boring, and it's very noticeable when you're playing as the Changeling, because it's honestly so different. It's just literally night and day. Well, yes, I know that it wouldn't affect characters such as Scarbrand too well, because obviously Scarbrand would be breaking stuff. It definitely needs a little bit of a facelift here and there. And just for showcase purposes, you can see the military cult here. It's pretty good when you start off. I mean, you start off with some tier 3 buildings, and obviously a tier 2 for the horrors. It means that you can get some pretty decent troops very early into your campaign, which is absolutely fantastic. Obviously, it's important to note that when you do this, make sure that you actually have the economy for... This is for showcase purposes, so obviously it's not something that I'd be doing in my campaign and just recruiting a bunch of pink horrors at the very beginning. But yeah, you definitely want this building sorted close to where you're going to be recruiting a lot of armies just to cause some chaos. The fact that you can have all your armies hidden away when you form a cult in certain regions is actually quite cool. You're going to be having armies pretty much hidden, and I know that sounds pretty weird, but it definitely does work for Tzeentch. So yeah, this is not just the Changeling, this is literally everyone. This is going to be one of those factions that you're basically going to be very unimpeded unless, cults are found and that makes an issue for you, or you get cocky, which I actually did a few times when I was just getting into the rhythm of stuff, and you leave an army exposed. It's very easy to forget, and boom, your stack that you've been working a few turns to build up has now gotten attacked by 4 different armies around that region. So yeah, it happens. And now we have to look towards the Blue Scribes. Yeah, it's been something that's a long time waiting. A lot of people are quite excited about him. All you need is a character to hit rank 10 and you get the first quest, and apparently the following factions can use him, which seems a bit weird to me. Kairos, Changeling, Village, Kolek, Sigvald, Archeon, Demon Prince, and Be'lakor. I'm not too sure why Archeon, Sigvald, Kolek, and, those Warriors of Chaos would use a demon, but, yeah, this is just provided to me by Creative Assembly. I actually haven't used them on the other factions just yet, but it's a pretty small quest line. These always are the case. First is capture 500 battle captives, then it's go to a certain location. Again, simple enough. There's not too much that you need to do. Since I've not been able to test with all the other characters, keep in mind that things might change depending on which character you're playing. Then build up a specific building, which generally you'll get pretty early into your campaign, again, depending on your funds overall. So make sure to save up and build up the parasitic and symbiotic buildings so you can actually really push to getting as much cash in as possible, and then afterwards you'll get the option. The option itself is pretty standard. You can get some bonuses for 15 turns, so you have the choice of which bonuses you want to get, and then afterwards they will summon. Yeah, I mean, very basic, no battle attached to them, unlike A called Hellbrass, which there'll be a video on him a little bit later today, which to be honest kind of works, because no battle means that you can just get them, put them in your army, and just go and cause some chaos. Again, something that you expect to be able to do, right? Now, the blue scribes are actually good at a number of things. You might have noticed they don't have their own item, but believe me, it's not needed. First thing is you've got a really powerful trait called Just the Two of Us, which has the following benefits. Weapon strength plus 30% for blue horrors of Tzeentch, pink horrors of Tzeentch, and exalted pink horrors of Tzeentch in the hero's army. Ammunition plus 100% for blue horrors, pink horrors, and exalted pink horrors, hero's army once again. And finally, missile strength plus 15% for blue horrors, pink horrors, and exalted pink horrors in the hero's army. You're going to notice a theme here. Not only is he very powerful in terms of magic, but you do have the fact that he's essentially Gordo's backstabber, but for Tzeentchian factions, which I kind of like. And as you know, these horrors will have access to pretty much all the laws of magic, just in a very random sense. We'll have a proper deep dive video on these guys too. And yeah, Winds of Magic costs 4% for all spells. It's insane. I would put them as a very, very powerful legendary hero, which makes me think on how strong we're going to get future legendary heroes, because we know that we're expecting a bunch more as time progresses, as DLC comes, and so on and so forth. But yeah, let me just give you a little bit of a basic idea on how and what I think about the campaign before we start jumping into the battle section and talking about the units and so on. Yeah, this is extremely unique. This is something that I was expecting to be out there, because obviously we've had unique campaigns for this game before, for example, Daniel and so on, but this is just really out there. The fact that you're not empire building at the beginning was a bit weird for me, but you kind of get used to it. Obviously, this is not a review of the product. I will not be telling you if you should buy this or not until, well, the review embargo, which I believe is about a day or two before the release of this DLC. There is a lengthy video ready for that, don't you worry. But it's nice to see some uniqueness. I think that uniqueness is important, especially for a Total War game like Warhammer, where a lot of the stuff can feel the same, even if slightly different. This definitely gives you a different playstyle for Tzeentch. So if you're a big fan of the Bluebird, now you actually have two different campaigns, completely different campaigns to play, should you decide to purchase this DLC or not, of course. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how future characters will be implemented if this is a new standard, at least for the demons so far, as Yonbo's faction, as I've discussed, has a stark contrast to the Changeling, where not so much unique stuff, but rather focusing on implementing stuff that's already there and just improving upon it. So yeah, there is very different sides of the spectrum here, obviously. Alright, so you do have a lot of new characters for Tzeentch. You've got, for the paid section, the Changeling and the Brood Scribes. Acord is here. He's going to have his own video, mostly because he is his own thing. He's attached to an FLC he is not paid for, but you do have variety. You definitely have pretty much every ticket you could want. The Changeling is insane as a character too. I mean, the fact that you can turn into pretty much any legendary lord, provided that you've seen them before and fought them before or unlocked them in another way, is just insane. I can't say that enough. It's something about the character which is just cool. But we can start looking towards other units. So the Mutilated Vortex Beast is, yeah, it's a big boy. I'm actually quite surprised that we finally got him. I honestly thought that Creative Assembly forgot it even existed at this point. But yeah, big creature, able to do a lot of damage, does some pretty good damage overall as it just literally exists. So you'll be doing damage to anything around you. Kind of works kind of like a Mortis engine. Overall, very, very happy. It looks insane. It's something that we'll probably see the rig off again in the future when a Khorne DLC happens to get a Slaughter Brute. But yeah, definitely pleased with the implementation. It is horrendously good, and you'll be seeing it in combat. I'll be streaming later today, as I said. So if you want to see it in combat, it's definitely the place to go. The Cockatrice itself is very, very cool. Yes, it's a flyer. It's basically just a beefed up Manticore, essentially, in terms of combat capabilities, or at least that's how I've seen it. But yeah, you know, it's something that a lot of people did actually run with their armies. So seeing it here finally is actually just really nice. They're not available to the Beastmen, which is a shame, but they are available to the Warriors of Chaos, and obviously now with Tzeentch. Cool flyer, good stats all around, fairly destructive. Does suffer versus, say, for example, vampires, but then again, surprise, surprise, vampires are quite good at killing big creatures such as this. And in general, awesome design. I've got a few of them painted. I love the idea of finally seeing them in Total War. And the Zangors, yeah, I know some people are disappointed. I mean, it's one of those situations where they could have been looking a little bit more unique, but obviously Games Workshop didn't allow for them. But this gives you a melee, decent melee troop at that, with Vanguard, which is surprising. Obviously, you've got Barrier 2. They're available for the Beastmen, so you do get quite a bit there. I don't really have a complaint. Yeah, it would have been nice to get some avian features, but at the end of the day, I can't blame CA for that. I blame GW. And for the Beastmen, you're essentially getting Bestigors with hand, weapon, and shield, and a barrier with Vanguard. I mean, you can't complain of that. It's basically like a Chaos Warrior Light for your Tzeentch faction too. Yeah, it's pretty good. So in this video, we're going to have a battle here where I'm coming in with minimal spellcasting. I'm using a front line of Zangors. I've got some Pink Horrors defending. I've got, well, you know, a Cockatrice, which doesn't really do too much in this battle, but then again, you know, Vampire, very, very strong when it's flying, and obviously a Mutilative Vortex Beast, some Blue Horrors, and the Changeling, who is going to be able to turn into Scarbrand. Yeah, kind of like how things are looking for the Tzeentch faction. There's stuff that's missing and so on, but we'll talk about that in the future when it comes to a actual review. This is just some first impressions regarding the battles and so on, and just in general the campaign. I like what I'm seeing. It is a fun faction to play. I am having fun. It's something to get used to, especially with how everything goes in the campaign, but battle-wise, it's still going to feel like a Tzeentch faction. You are going to benefit heavily from spellcasting as usual, and yeah, you know, I didn't really have a lot of spells with this because custom battles has a limit if you want to keep things fair, or else then randomizer will just put it in favor to the AI. This is as fair as I could have had it with random army for the vampire counts. Yeah, I must say, pretty excited to see how things go. The Mutilative Vortex Beast performed stupendously well. There is a lot to come. I can't wait to get into bigger actual showcases. At the moment, you can only get up to turn 75, which is a bit of a shame, but this is how CA have always done it, I guess, to not show everything just yet. The most important thing is, what do you guys think about this? Obviously, it's a faction that a lot of people have been looking up to. When I asked you guys on my Discord who you wanted to see first, either Yuan Bo and the Changeling, it was overwhelmingly for the Changeling, so obviously there is a lot of Chaos fans out there. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let's have a bit of a discussion. Once again, if you want to see a lot of this stuff, not just in videos, there's going to be 4 videos today, by the way, but if you want to see a lot more content, I'll be streaming every single day at twitch.tv/thegreatbookofgrudges. Pop by, say hi, let's talk, and yeah, I'll see you all again very, very soon. I'll let the rest of the battle play out so you can see some silly mistakes on my part, and just in general, a full battle. See you soon.
Good demands movement. Seek out slaughter. Glory leads us on. Sing that away! Total War Warhammer! Stop! Fuck you, dogs!